Hello race fans and welcome to a brand new season of the PorscheSport Carrera Cup live here on RaceSpot TV, and we're here for round one at the beautiful Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in Lexington, Ohio. And joining me, Peter MacKay, in the commentary box for the entirety of this season is my pal Soumil Arora. Soumil, it is great to be back. How are you feeling heading into this brand new season?
Oh, I can't tell you, Peter. There's just such a buzz of excitement. It's been October since we last had one of the races in this championship, and man, it doesn't feel like so long. We had so much fun in the first season. I'm seriously not able to wait to see what happens here in the second season of the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. I'm pumped up today.
Well, we have a brand new season and a brand new group of drivers. We had an incredibly competitive championship last time out, won by Alexander Teeb in a season-long battle with Maxim Ramstein, two drivers in the Porsche Taycan Esports Super Cup. But we have a whole new cast of drivers to fight for this championship here on RaceSpot TV. So let's have a look at the schedule and see where we are going to go over this whole season. We've, of course, starting here at Mid-Ohio, and then in 2 weeks' time we go to Zolder. The kind of lives in the shadow of Spa-Francorchamps a little bit, but you will enjoy that one, viewers, I am sure. A proper technical challenge. Then to Imola. We returned to Imola after last season. The Nürburgring Grand Prix, Brands Hatch, Suzuka, and a personal favourite of mine, Soumil, Sebring.
Yes, we have seen quite a fair bit of drama there, haven't we, in the last couple of weeks. No, it should be an amazing calendar, this one. I'm quite pumped up to see what happens back at Imola, because the last time we were there last season, that was a rather fun race. And then again, Sebring, Suzuka, Brands Hatch, this is a good calendar, isn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely superb. And for the drivers, if there's always one track on the calendar where you're going, oh please no, not that track. Well, the drivers have a little bit of an allowance, because out of the 7 rounds, only 6 need to count for your championship points. And championship points pay prizes. Let's have a look at what the drivers are campaigning for across this new PorscheSport Carrera Cup Season 2. The winner of the Pro Championship, €250, second €100, and third €75. But of course, running alongside, and this is something that's new, isn't it, Soumil? We've got an AM Championship, €60 for the winner, 40 for second, and 20 for third, and that's going to give us even more to keep on top of.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw last year we had a very, very big grid, right? And so at times we kind of lost focus on those competing in the midfield. So to have an AM championship of sorts really gives us a chance to focus more on them and kind of look at those battles more objectively with more context. I think this year we should focus more on them and have more fun with them, in fact.
Indeed, and the one thing that is just so special here about the PorscheSport Carrera Cup is our format. So we start off with 2 20-minute 30-car heat races. Now, from each heat, 10 cars advanced automatically to the feature race. And Soumil, if you don't get through that top 10, if you're outside of the top 10, you go into the consolation race. And the consolation race is kind of like, well, how should we say it? It's like trying to pick up a date at the end of a dance. It's very difficult, and and it's competitive as well. The getting through from that consolation race, it's really something you want to try and avoid if you can help it.
Exactly, right? It's a 40-car consolation race. It's no joke at all. So out of them, only 10 advance, so your odds any which ways are looking quite slim. That is, if you can survive it, because sometimes we do get to see a lot of pandemonium around there. So with only 20 minutes in that race, you've got to make moves and you've got to make them happen rather quick. So the pressure will really be on all the drivers to get whatever they can done in the heats itself, so that they don't really have to take that pressure on them for the consolation one.
Indeed they do, and a huge thank you to our title sponsor once again, PorscheSport, the world's leading independent news site for all things Porsche in racing. Do check it out. Features and interviews, and a weekly podcast as well, with interviews from the great and the good of the Porsche racing world. And, well, any Porsche fans watching or listening, Soumil, will be very happy indeed, because a double win for Porsche last night in the Sebring 12 hour.
Absolutely, yeah. I wish I had the chance to watch it in great depth, but I've heard good things about it, and especially more about the finish, because that's had a few people talking, let's put it that way.
Yeah, we could maybe summarise it as, thanks BMW, that was really kind. So, I'm just preparing for our first heat race to get lined up. The drivers have already completed their qualifying laps, and they will be preparing to take the grid for the first race of the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. And this is how they line up. The last season's runner-up Maxim Ramstein will start on pole position alongside Suelio Almeida. Jeremy Lemire and Kane Halliburton will start from row 2, and Brian Lockwood and Kamil Grabowski start on the 3rd row. What a star-studded lineup. Florian Lebije will start from 7th, with the returning Dylan Burse starting in 8th for Vendaval Sim Racing. Mike Wasip-Kosip-Syker, my goodness, that's a mouthful, starts alongside Pascal Costa, Tyus Burke and Kirill Kolobuksov starting on the 6th row. Starting on the 7th row will be Jan Schmitz and Senk Insekoglu alongside Andrew Precorio and Marco Jaeger. Row 9 sees Chris Walsh and Nick Harwood as well. Starting from 19th will be Nilson Costa de Souza, followed by Miroslav Nastalovic, David Ward, Nick Rowland, Justin Rem and Wayne Sanderson rounding out the top 24. And finally, Gaten Anger, Mark Jones, Jeffrey Garzotto and Aaron Folkers round out this 28-car grid. And Soumil, only 10 places for the automatic entry to the feature. This is going to be very fiercely fought.
Exactly. If that isn't a good representation of what kind of a crazy race that we're going to get, I don't think nothing else will be. And if you don't quite understand what kind of drama we're going to get, well, just stick around. The next 20 odd minutes should give you an exactly good idea of what to expect, not just in all the races, but well, throughout the season pretty much. In the heats, in the consolation, in the finale, everywhere. This sort of action is going to be keeping all of us on our toes. And Peter, frankly, what a track to come to for the first race of our season.
It's absolutely fantastic. Yes, of course, the Mid-Ohio sports car course, very familiar to fans of the old American Le Mans series and now the IMSA WeatherTech Championship, and of course the IndyCar series as well, a regular feature on the IndyCar calendar. But it looks like we've got the majority of our drivers prepared, and we are away for a brand new season of the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. Good start for Maxim Ramstein, now signed for Core Sim Racing, so he has left the HM Engineering colours behind him, now racing for Core Sim Racing. They tear down towards the turn 2, the keyhole as it's known, trying to get through in there nice and clean and tidy, not time to get involved in any argy-bargy, but good respect and nice and clean early on, Soumil.
Absolutely, early signs of Maxim Ramstein holding things on very carefully, but Suelio Almeida for the Racecraft Esports team is right there. Saw somewhat of an opportunity right there, but decided to refrain from making a move heading into China Beach. Probably a smart idea.
Oh, we've got a couple of cars off there going into China Beach. That's the number 114 car, the 172. And there's a number of drivers actually taking a toll already, so not a good start already. Of course, it's such a long braking zone into there, Soumil, and of course these cars do not have the benefit of anti-lock braking systems.
Exactly, it's proper hardcore stuff. There's no ABS, no traction control. You go out there and you fight it properly hard. That's the kind of fun action that we like to see, and that makes the car obviously very, very frisky. So sometimes you might end up seeing drivers spinning out slightly here and there, but the quality of the field is so high that those incidents are few and far stretched out. Meanwhile, in the first lap, Maxim Ramstein holding Suelio Almeida quite well.
So there we go then, just a 20-minute sprint race, so there's no time to hang about at all here at Mid-Ohio. And it's, I just feel like the heat has just been turned up to 11 here in this championship, Soumil, because I was speaking to Gavin the Vampire Halls early on, and he was saying that he'll just be happy to make the final, which is quite a different set of challenges than last time when he was going for wins.
Yeah, exactly. The field has been so much more competitive, but look at this, Peter. Already 3 wide on the opening lap.
Well, this is a look at our, oh dear, this is a look at our incident in China Beach at lap 1, and one of the Wild Animals cars there, the 55 on the outside, is kind of running into the back there, and well, it's and of course the thing is here in this championship, Soumil, in the past you might have been able to recover from that and maybe just sneak back in, but those sort of mistakes will be punished so much more severely in this new season.
Yeah, exactly. So few slots to go ahead and such a competitive grid that even if you have one tiny mistake, it seems highly unlikely for you. But never count out the odd heroic recovery drive here and there. It's such a good grid. So many drivers can possibly try and get their foot up in the door here.
Indeed, yes. So 17 minutes to go here at Mid-Ohio. Maxim Ramstein, your leader, Almeida in second, and Ken Halliburton in third. The radical star. Now we've got to spin. Is that Almeida? Yes, it is. Almeida makes a bit of a mistake, and that's allowed Ramstein to escape a little bit there. So a mistake for Almeida at the keyhole.
Exactly, big one for him right there, but he still holds on to P number 2 somewhat. Ramstein has a big gap, and now it's 3 racecraft cars all close to each other. They won't fight each other too hard, I can imagine, but a collective push can take them ever so closer to one Maxim Ramstein right at the top of the field.
So the gap now 1.1 seconds, as we saw last time out in the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. You cannot allow Maxim Ramstein the room to escape, because he will just lay into such a consistent pace, and it's very, very difficult to catch indeed. As you can see, Brian Lockwood there back again for another season as well, of course, racing in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup as well for the World Championship, $200,000 prize. Brian competing for in that championship, one of only 40 drivers with an entry, and Brian was so exciting last season, Soumil, even gave us his own, we even named a corner at Zandvoort after him. He made so many overtaking manoeuvres there.
Exactly, the Lockwood corner in the middle sector of Zandvoort. He had such an impact on us last season, and Brian, one of the very few drivers in the world of esports who have actually made out a career purely out of sim racing. It's kind of fascinating how that happened. And his teammate Soumil Almeida right there, Peter. You saw that? He's just pushing the limits, 2 wheels on the grass early on.
Indeed, yeah, there's nothing left. Nothing left on the table here. As you can see, the 3 Racecraft Esports guys leading second, third, fourth, and I tell you what, in this, oh, we got a spinner. Oh, dearie me, that's the number 68 of Dylan Burse. And I tell you what, did very well to hang on to that one, did Dylan. We know that Dylan actually races Hyundai XLs, which is probably the only thing that's even more frantic than racing these Porsche Cup cars here on iRacing, Soumil.
He's probably had a lot more experience with cars that are a lot more frisky. He relied upon the other one to just kind of keep himself stable, but it just works out well for him. Hardcore racing, but still just keeping it on the edge of the track. For when about sim racing he races, what's happened here? Ah, look at this one, just slightly loses control of it right about now.
Yeah,
nice
lost it on his own. Lost it on his own there to Dylan, but actually he kind of got bumped back into a straight line by the drivers behind. I actually think that was Kamil Grabowski that actually, or was it Lemire? It was one of the two of them anyway. Grabowski there in the 96 car. Now, I've had the discomfort of racing against Camille, and I say racing, I've had the discomfort of watching Camille go past me like I was standing still. He is a fast driver, make no mistake, and at the moment he is on that kind of bubble. Of course, Pascal Costa in 10th, he's the man in the transfer spot right now. Weiser Kupseiker, he's the guy who would be the first into the dreaded consolation race.
Indeed, for Weiser Kupseiker, he just has to make one more position up, but well, Pascal Costa is no small cookie right there. He'll be one tough driver to pass out, but then again, Peter, that's what happens in the midfield, right? There's so much of chaos, so much of drama going on there, that quite often you do see drivers sneak their way up just as a way, just because of all the drama that's going on, so never rule out anyone coming up for a very good comeback drive. That P10 spot, it's pretty volatile towards the very end.
It certainly is, and the pace, just to give an impression, fastest lap of the race right now is, understandably, Maxim Ramstein, a 123.383. Now, all the way down in 7th, 123.398, is the best of Jeremy Lemire. So that shows you that all the way through the field, you've got such strong pace. I mean, you've got drivers in 14th lapping in the 123s.
Yeah, exactly. And in pre-qualifying, we had so few drivers that on top 8 or top 9 or something, split out by only a couple of tenths of a second. That kind of stuff is just insane. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is just the first heat. There is another one of these heats with another half of the field waiting right there. So I can only imagine what the final is going to look like. But clearly, the grid is incredibly close. And the drafting effect, Peter, not really coming up to great use here. Nobody quite able to make a very clean move heading to China Beach. That could be the draft, or just because it's such a tight corner to make a move at.
Yeah, that's one thing that Mid-Ohio is, well, Mid-Ohio is known for a lot of things, but it's one thing that is kind of renowned for is it's very difficult to make those overtaking manoeuvres, and going down into China Beach, that is kind of your best opportunity because you've got quite a long braking zone, but with a field as tight as this, as close as this, very, very difficult to kind of make the moves forward through the pack. But what we have seen is the drivers make mistakes. This is such a challenging circuit that you know, actually you're almost going to make your way forward by pressuring the car in front and hope that they slip up a little bit. This is a circuit with such great heritage, particularly with Porsche. Porsche dominated here in the heady days of Can-Am when Mark Donoghue put it on pole in his Porsche 917-30, which in qualifying trim had about 1200 horsepower and set an average speed of 107 miles an hour around this circuit.
And can you imagine, Peter, those were days when the Thunder Valley corner was even faster than what it is today.
And bearing in mind that a Porsche 917-30, I mean, you've got more sturdy crisp packets than that car. It was just so wafer-thin bodywork, huge horsepower, and the engine, you basically, Mark Donoghue was saying that at the time, if it's not spinning the wheels from one exit of one corner to the entry of another, we've still not given it enough power.
That's just kind of insane, right? The kind of stories of those days. And Mid-Ohio, notoriously not the smoothest racing circuit in the world as well. You factor that in too, kind of makes it rather fierce. And even with these cars, Peter, they may not be as clunky as the old ones, but when they get going, seriously, the 911 GT3 Cup car, quite a tricky one to tame. So to see them racing side by side here as they have been so far, quite the achievement this.
Indeed, yes it is. It's a proper 911 for better or worse. Of course, the engine right at the back of the car, it's not a mid-engine car, it's a rear-engine car, which the 911 has been since its launch in 1964, and it's won in all kinds of different forms of motorsport. The Monte Carlo Rally, Le Mans, Sebring, Daytona, you name it, the 911 has won there. It is such an amazing story. But this particular edition of the 911 Cup, you really are on your own. No ABS, no traction control. You've basically just got that garden fence of a rear wing on the back of the car to keep you on the track.
Yeah, exactly. That's the case for you. And look at this, Jeremy Lemire trying to channel that sort of instability of the car towards making a very good move on Dylan Burst. But Dylan, after that sort of pseudo spin that he had there at turn number 1, he has recovered quite well. Not so much in terms of closing up to the top 5, but he's still holding on to his position quite well, which may be frustrating for Jeremy Lemire, because he was the one who somewhat assisted Dylan Burst to get back straight up, and now he's the one who's stuck behind him. Must be a precarious position to be in. Still right there around the gap of 1/10 of a second between Jeremy Lemire and Dylan Burst right around here. Around, what, 8.5 minutes left to go to the end of this race, so we're right down to the final half of it. It's been somewhat quieter, which means that drivers are actually holding off on making their moves towards the very end, and I think that will only be a sane decision, right? Considering how tight and twisty of a circuit Mid-Ohio is, it's only better if you end up being more sane and don't make more, let's say, kamikaze moves, but rather hold it on and come up with a decent finish, so that then you can qualify in a pretty good position for the consolation race. And as tricky as it may be to make your way up there in the consolation race, might as well enhance your chances. And then, hope that things like this do not happen. Dylan Burst, ladies and gentlemen, has been spun around right there. And you kind of get a feeling that Jeremy Lamier got a little bit impatient, and that accident, it seemed inevitable. And here it is once again. We'll take a quick look at the replay of exactly what happened, but tempers flying over very early on in this season. Burst defending normally, taking the normal line as he would, but Lamier getting closer again. Putting his nose right there. It's a tricky call right there for race control, but clear case of good hard racing, right? When that happens, accidents like this one are never ever too far off. Of course, there will be some rather explicatives, rather special words flying around, but let's hope we come up to a solution for that rather soon. But at the very top, it is 3 Racecraft esports cars that are holding it all together in the top 4. Maxime Ramstein, in fact, has built up quite a gap to himself. He's got 3 seconds to all the other cars right there, as you can see on your screen. And the 3 Racecraft cars haven't quite been able to work together to close up that gap since the very beginning, because Ramstein, he kind of created that gap very early on, and you would expect all these 3 teammates perhaps to use the draft off each other and to kind of close it up and then work as a unit to maybe get the positions, but clearly not working out. The pace of Ramstein just too good for them. Look at the slide. This is classic Porsche territory, isn't it? Gaetan Anger just sliding the car and murdering a few cones along the way as well. That's alright, that's just characteristic of iRacing, but somehow he has kept it clean together, folks. Now, I don't know how you do that sort of stuff. Certainly not possible in my abilities, but that is some save right there. Put that in the Hall of Fame already. Reaching up to the 6-minute mark left in this race so far, and we are seeing a bit of aggression right there from Kane Halliburton, perhaps looking to attack Soumil Almeida, his teammate, around the outside of the keyhole, and not quite able to get something done. Paul Holleroyd has come in the chat and has asked a rather good question. He's asking, who's the clerk of the course? And I wish we knew. He'd be pretty pissed after looking at those cones completely being battered and bruised. But it's iRacing, so I think we can still take our leeways slightly more so than in real life. In actuality, it would be quite a hefty fine, that one. Coming up towards this tricky midfield section, past the S's, the world-famous S's actually. It can be quite tricky to tiptoe your way around this spot. It's quite fascinating to think that we used to have, and we still have in fact, the Indy cars coming here to Mid-Ohio every single season. Must be a daunting task to take a car around the S's oh so fluently. But it has somewhat calmed down here at the top of heat number 1 of the first round of the PorscheSport Carrera Cup that we're having here. The second season, mind you. And Maxime Ramstein has just created such an aura around him. Look at it. It's so visual, right? The kind of gap that he's created for himself. And it's not like an endurance race where you've got strategy like tyre saving or fuel saving or anything like that. It is pure on pace. And there it is, Jeremy Lamier coming down in through for a drive-through penalty, I would imagine, for that crash that he had with Dylan Burst early on. Live race touring, remember, you can get penalties instantly after they are done. So with the last 4 minutes left of this race, we are seeing a few precarious battles in the midfield. And the last of the drivers making the bubble is Nick Harwood in that 199 car. And interestingly enough, he's got a bit of gap to Chris Walsh in P11, so he can take a breath of, let's say, calmness. But this battle that we're seeing on screen right now is the one for P number 7. And the reason why it matters so much, well, you might be thinking, yeah, both of these guys qualify, right? So why bother fighting so hard? Well, the higher up you finish in the heat race, which means the higher up you qualify for the final feature race. Now, every position matters in that one. When you're fighting for such a great sense of pride and such a great sense of prize money as well, you want to increase your chances every step of the way. And this can just give you the biggest advantage in that sense.
Now, I think I'm back. I hope so.
You are, yes.
Soumil, I'm sure you've been guiding the ship beautifully.
I certainly hope so. We'll find out later when I go for a quick race review at the end.
I guarantee you have. Huge apologies from me here, folks. A little bit of a technical issue here at Peter MacKay Motorsport HQ. So apologies for that. But well, we're as usual, Soumil. That gap for the transfer spot is getting very spicy as always. It wouldn't be the PorscheSport Carrera Cup if it wasn't.
Exactly, it is getting ever so closer. Dylan Burse also in a recovery drive of sorts, but look at this. Kane Halliburton trying to go around the outside line on his teammate and pushed onto the grass, Peter.
Oh, well that wasn't really very good racecraft, was it? For your teammate, oh, that's going to go down well. Now, these guys, they do have the luxury of, you know, if they drop one spot, two spots, it's not such an issue, Soumil, is it? Because they are still in the transfer spot, but that could have been quite a bit worse. And you can see there, Lebiger in the number 47 car, thinking, haha, I've got a little bit of spice in the ranks here.
Exactly, and rule number one of motorsport, the golden rule of motorsport, never ever hit your teammate. That didn't happen, thankfully, but one of them, that is Kane Halliburton, got compromised by just a little bit. And I'll tell you what they did pretty well, Peter. Florian Lebiger has still been kept behind in P number 5, so they did a good job of maintaining that kind of troika that they have, heading on from P number 2 to P number 4, but that could have been far, far worse than it actually is right now, you know.
Definitely, absolutely. It could have been a lot worse. So just a minute and 18 seconds to go. So, well, I wonder now if we pick up our leader, we will be heading towards the white flag. I would think, in fact, I think actually, yes, we will be white flag when they come over the stripe here for the final time. Yep, here we go through the down towards the final part of the circuit now. This is what they call Thunder Valley. Really tight, really fast as well. And Maxim Ramstein, well, he carries on his form from, he was so close to edging out Alexander Teeb for the championship last season, but he's starting off his campaign in perfect form here, Soumil.
Yeah, exactly. He's just been a class apart here in this season. Very much reminiscent of one Alexander Teeb who he was fighting for the championship last year. But Ramstein, we've seen him grow pretty much here in the PorscheSport Carrera Cup and translating into becoming a World Championship driver as well. And this race clearly goes out there and proves his credentials.
It does indeed. Now, we will see, of course, looking at his pace, he's a 123.3 was his best in this particular race, 124.0 last time around. We'll keep an eye on the pace of our second heat to see what we might be able to expect. We can do a little bit of comparison, a little bit of journalistic digging when you see, of course, there might be drivers in a different heat from one another, but we're almost sizing them up, trying to make predictions, try and make ourselves sound like we know what we're talking about, Soumil, when we come into the feature race.
Exactly, and who can blame us, right? It's such an intense series, this one, with so many good drivers, that you can always be excused for predicting and kind of making those sort of key notes about, oh, I think this driver versus this driver is going to be quite intense. It should be fun.
Indeed. Now, it looks like Nick Harwood in 10th position in the 199 car is looking relatively safe. And I say that very carefully for a reason. Miroslav Nostalchik is the next one along in 11th position, but the checkered flag is being prepared for Maxim Ramstein. The Dutchman is back in the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. He wins the opening heat of the season and takes pole position for the feature race for his trouble. Through we go then to the finish line. They'll stream over. Pascal Costa will get their home in 8th position. Wisip Kosipsaiker in 9th. And we'll wait for Harwood to come over the line and we will get him home in 10th position and getting that transfer spot. Unfortunately, Nostalchik is the last driver, or the first driver, not to get an invite to the feature. Certainly not automatically. He will go through the consolation race.
Indeed, what a fun opening heat that we had right there for the second season of the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. Pretty much giving you a good idea of what to expect. Hard, close, explosive racing Let's hope for more battles in the second heat, at least in terms of a race-winning perspective, because here, Maxime Ramstein just steamrolled his way past.
Yeah, he certainly did Maxim, and he's confirmed then as your winner. 4.3 seconds, relatively dominant for a 20-minute race. His fastest lap, a 1:23.383, as we said. Celio Almeida finishing second, followed by his Racecraft Esports colleagues Brian Lockwood and Kane Halliburton. So this is how they start for heat number 2. Kevin Nielsen and Joonzo Tasdelen start on the front row of the grid. Sam Coiter, another returning driver for this season, alongside Quentin Violati, who joins us once again here in the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. The Apex Racing team, Jake Robertson starting from 5th and will be joined by Alexander Lauritsen in 6th position. Row 4 will be Nick Schulte-Wisserman alongside Alexei Nezov, a very fast driver with real-world racing experience. On row 5 will be Steve Lavallee and Gavin the Vampire Holtz for Porsche Sport. Laurent Benso will start from 11th and Rebecca Pauline will start in 12th place. Row 7 sees Oscar Wilkins, and Alexander Hetmank. Marcel Jochheim and Lewis Ward start on row 8, followed by Ilham Pipers and Thomas Gildalian. And finally, our last few runners: Bastian Matler, Magnus Terkildsen, Vince Peters, James Parker, Jaime Ferrero and Martin Donati, rounding out top 12. And the last few cars: Clement Andriot, Hendrik Lichtenhagen, Martin Spalek and David DeWitt round out 28 cars. 10 go through automatically to the feature. The rest face the dreaded consolation race. So you see our pole sitter there, Kevin Nielsen, preparing for this one. Of course, these 911 Cup cars are quite tricky to get off the line well, and you've got to be careful not to give the clutch too much of a hard time on the getaway, Soumil.
Exactly, yeah. They just have to caress the clutch gently before the green lights come in, and poof, the drama begins.
So it does. We had a car at the back there actually moved before the light, so I wonder if they'll get a drive-through penalty. We will keep you up to date on that one. But oh, what a sight that is. They stream past into turn 1, a blind entry, very, very quick, especially when they get up to full racing pace. And oh, we got a couple of cars off at the back. Always a danger going into turn 1 here at Mid-Ohio. They get into turn 2 at the keyhole, relatively safety. Oh, Jake Robertson going for the outside there on the number 48 of Alexander Lauritsen. They drag race down the back straightaway down towards China Beach. Who's going to have the guts on the brakes? Oh, of course, this is so tough because the brakes will be cold, the tyres will be cold, and no anti-lock braking system to catch you. If you just squeeze that little bit too much brake pressure, well, you're turning your tyre into, well, a little bit of a 50p piece.
Thankfully, sanity is still maintained on the opening lap, at least in the first couple of sectors, and that could all change at this particular part because the S is such a tricky place to handle any race car. Thankfully, all well, all clean, and the drivers are being more cautious in their approach. And why shouldn't they be? It's better to go in a more cautious and more regulated approach than going kamikaze and losing out on an ultimate slot in the final race here.
Indeed, yeah, you've really got to use your head in this format. Sometimes accepting a certain position can be the way to go, and keep your powder dry for the feature race. His main thing is just getting on the grid for that feature race. It's certainly going to be very hotly contested here in the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. You see a good start there for Alexei Nezov. Now watch for Alexei. He is so fast and super aggressive as well. If there is a move to be made, Alexei will go for it in that 33 car. He's got quite a bit of experience racing in an AMG GT Mercedes as well, so knows about cars with plenty of horsepower anyway. But you see the teammates here, oh dear me, it's tight there for the 44 and the 45 car. That's Peters and Oscar Wilkins, and oh, Wilkins is off. Wilkins is off. The Dutchman is off. Oh, he's avoided China Beach. He's on China Lawn there, not China Beach.
And a rather slippy and slidey place for him to be in, but thankfully not making contact with anyone. Poor Orlowski was having such a good run right there on his teammate. That's what happens, right? You just push the limit slightly too much and you find yourself, well, it's a beach, but not the most comfortable one in the world.
No, there's no one selling ice cream anyway, that's for sure. You're just picking bits of sand out of your hair. Now I have to say I like this car here of Gonza Tasdellen. It's very, very jazzy. Of course, we had... forgive me, Soumil, I'm forgetting who used to wear... Justin Tipton had the bright pink wheels. Yes, that's who it was. So now this season we don't have bright pink ones, but we've got purple ones there with Gonza Tasdellen, which is strangely a little bit less offensive than Justin's bright pink wheels.
Yeah, quick look at the replay for Oscar Wilkins. Look at the car, how it slides downhill, right? But coming back to the... Oh, we had another driver making the same mistake right there. So clearly, it's just spilling over right there at the early part. But no, you're right, Peter. That's a beautiful looking car right there. Plus, remember, I think we had a good friend... we had so many drivers having such good liveries. I can't remember who had another brilliant one. I'll just quickly think of it. But man, this is a brilliant one.
Yeah, indeed. Now, it's strange we've not got any HM Engineering cars as well. They will be missed, the red machines of HM Engineering, which are so prominent at the front of so many categories of sim racing. But nice to see Sam Coiter has been signed by... There's been a little bit of transfer deadline day between this season and last season. And Sam Coiter, he's signed for Racecraft Esports, who look like they're going to be a real force in this PorscheSport Carrera Cup. And of course, Sam, being a Dutchman, he's got orange wheels on his car.
Yeah, Sam Coiter. I had a word with him early on before the start of the season, and he seemingly is a past Dutch national karting champion, which he says is not a big deal. He's the master of the understatement, Sam Coiter, a real force last season, who is being attacked by another force of last season, Quintin Violate. He used to race for Team Fiercely Forward, now racing for the RAG Esports Junior lineup, and it's quite pleasing to see, isn't it, Peter? All the big names of last season transitioning on to seemingly bigger teams, bigger organizations, I'll put it that way. Such a fun thing to watch.
Oh, and well, yep, Quintin Violate is back, barges his way through on Sam Coiter. Now, both of these drivers, they give as good as they get, and Coiter will not accept that one lying down. He'll want to try and snap straight back Troy Bayliss style on Quintin Violate there, but Violate looking really, really racy, and now setting his sights on Gonza Tasdellen. Now, must give a shout out to the number 38 car, Gavin the Vampire Halls, from Team PorscheSport, of course, the lead instructor at the Bahrain International Circuit. And when he's not crashing supercars, Soumil, he's racing for PorscheSport in the sim.
Yeah, exactly, and he did quite a decent job last season. He's on the final slot right here in B number 10. And under pressure from Rebecca Pauline currently as it comes up. That should be a fun battle. And behind them, Lauren Benzo is right there too. And we've seen him race quite a fair bit last season. He can be quite a force too.
Indeed, yes, absolutely. Now, got a fun fact about Gavin Halls. He once crashed a golf buggy with 3 passengers on board, which were Bernie Eccleston, Kimi Räikkönen and Sebastian Vettel.
I haven't heard of them before. Are they any big people per se, Peter?
They do a bit of motor racing, yes, they do. So, just under 14 minutes to go here, so early days in this second heat. And, well, Gavin Halls has got the attentions of Rebecca Pauline here for Fiercely Forward. And I tell you what, these Fiercely Forward do like a nice livery, and that one, it just looks magic on this Porsche 911 Cup car. In fact, they have this colour scheme, Soumil, which is the kind of yellow and black sort of bumblebee scheme, but they also have a red and black one, which I refer to as the cherry cola scheme.
Yeah, exactly. They've got it nailed down. I thought that they would never move away from the traditional yellow and black that they have, but they did it quite well. And also, in Ivra competition for the Ivra Club Cup, they had a black livery on a Mazda MX-5 too. But what are the black cars that spun around? It's the XVR sim racing machine, getting rather risky right there.
Well, where is Le Valet with my Porsche? Oh, dearie me. That's not good news. And that, of course, drops Steve Le Valet out. Well, now, looks like showing on my timing screen that he has dropped well down out of the top 10. Now, that's great news for Gavin Halls and for Fiercely Forward's Rebecca Pauline, because now she is the last into the feature race, those vital 10 spots. So let's see what happened to Steve Levalet. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Whoa, just lets go on him. Just carries a little bit too much speed there into the carousel. And Soumil, that's a bit of a classic 911 accident. The Porsche 911 has so many attributes. With that engine right out the back, you get fantastic out of the corner grip and traction, but when it's kind of like a pendulum effect. When the car starts to go, it can really go on you quite quickly.
Indeed, yeah, Steve facing the effects of it quite the hard way. I'm sure he'll recover back again for race number 2, or maybe the consolation race, my apologies, but it's a really hard place to be there because the car doesn't even have any traction control, so it's really, really a tough task. It's like going against the impossible to try and control that car when it spins out that way. Meanwhile, look at how close they're getting in this battle for P number 2. Tazilin has been closed up by Violate, and Sam Coited pushing to make a move on Quinton Violate around the outside. They're nudging each other, Peter. This is getting rather spicy.
Yes, it is indeed, and it's a top shelf spice as well, one that you can't touch without gloves on. Yeah, I think Sam Coiter is determined to settle the score. My goodness me, that was close. And yeah, I wonder if they're maybe just kind of holding each other up a little bit. A bad drive there out of the keyhole for Coiter, and that's allowed Violate a little bit of breathing space and allowed the number 48 of Lauritsen and the 122 of Jake Robertson into the reckoning as well. Of course, Jake Robertson, a competitor in the iRacing World Rallycross Championship.
Yeah, exactly. Putting his experience to good use here. Maybe a different car, the fundamentals of racing and the mentality that you need to have for that, very much the same. But look at this one, Peter. Who said that a battle low down the field cannot be excellent? This is so brilliant, right? P11, one of the top positions, right on the bubble pretty much. And they may not be fighting for a direct spot into the feature race, but in essence, they are fighting for a very good qualifying slot for the consolation race, and that can mean a world of difference.
Absolutely, and that's if things stay as they are. We saw this a lot last season here in the PorscheSport Carrera Cup, where if you have one driver make a mistake in that top 10, then all of a sudden this becomes a whole different context, doesn't it? All of a sudden you're not fighting for pole or the consolation race, you're fighting for an automatic feature invite as well, and there's a big train forming up here. So, wow, it's the number 45 of Vince Peters at the moment. He's saying, oh, it's too much of a gap to really run in there from the guys in front, but it would just take one mistake from one driver in the next 10 minutes, and that is what he is hoping for, because he's starting to put a little bit of distance here between himself and Alexander Hetmank and the number 98 car of Laurent Benso. Benso very, very good on the brakes there.
Exactly, defending his line extremely confidently, and now Hetman getting ever so closer. What's interesting is this camera angle, right? You get to see the driver's eye, and Tyler Maxson, our producer, working his magic with it. Just look at how frisky the car is, folks. Just look at how many marginal steering movements that Alexander Hetman has to put in just to keep the car under control. You have to fight with this car, right? It's not as stable as the Mercedes AMG GT3. It is just an incredible beast, quite literally.
Oh yes, it is. Yeah, it can sometimes feel a little bit on the loose side, can this Porsche 911 GT3 Cup, and getting the car dialed in, getting that set up correctly, very, very important. But we've got some of the biggest teams in sim racing here, and a little bit of a gee whiz, the number 98 of Laurent Benso has got the car absolutely broadside, and he's lost 1, 2, 3, 4 positions here. And, well, but the fact that he's still in the race at all is a mighty impressive bit of car control there, because anyone else, that car was in the fence.
Yeah, exactly. That is some insane stuff. His tires may be screaming with agony right there, but that is one for the highlight reel later on. Instantly, though, up under pressure from 2 cars behind, but we must focus on this battle on the screen that we are seeing right now, because in the midfield, Peter, that is when things can get really chaotic. With 8 odd minutes to go and good qualifying slots with the consolation race on offer, nobody is going to slack off here.
No, absolutely not. There is no, absolutely. Now I think maybe Laurent Benso there actually just touching one tyre onto the grass there, and that kind of just as he asked for as for the brake and then as for the power, it just tipped around. So, but to tell you what, Laurent Buenso did a very good job. Still now in the 15th, still in 15th position even after that big moment. But back to the front, the sharp end. Kevin Nielsen still leading, but he has not been able to shake off Guanzo Tasdelen. Quentin Violati still on the scent as well there in third position in the 17 car. And Sam Coiter with the Racecraft esports machine with the orange wheels sitting there in fourth.
Indeed, yeah, it has been quite a train right there at the very top. And Kevin Nielsen and Gonzo Tasdelen in the prime positions, but take a look at this behind, right? They are new joinees into our championship. It is so cool to see them coming up and making an impact straight away. But what about Violati and Coiter? We've seen them do big things, and now they're up against two really big forces right on top. I'm quite impressed by the way both of these drivers have performed very early on their debut in this championship.
Yep, indeed. Yeah, of course, Coitert and Violati are they're kind of the old guard, if you want to call it that. And Nielsen and Tasdelen are getting a taste for it, and well, I'm sure they're having an absolute ball here, and they're really tight, close racing. And what's been nice to see, there hasn't been really any contact at all, which has caused an incident so far here in the heats, which is really nice to see. So yeah, just of course a little bump here, a little bump there from Violati and Coiter, but I get the feeling that they're both quite comfortable with that, both giving it and taking it.
But what's not nice is the murder of cones. Come on, we just saw another one being absolutely killed. The jokes aside, Violati is looking for something on the inside of Tasdelen right now, and what's happening quite often is that Tasdelen is taking a slightly more deeper line heading into the keyhole, so Violati almost always just seems to spot a slight opportunity which then eventually fades away. So I wonder whether he's getting slightly frustrated, but it's a testament to his composure that he's not quite made any mistakes so far, and hopefully he does not as well.
And what's incredible here is that you've got all these drivers on such a similar level, but they're all just sort of following one by one, because I think they know that they're well in the transfer spots. They know especially if you're finishing in the top 5, that puts you inside the top 10 on the grid for the feature race, and that is a very strong place to be. Of course, the feature race, 30 cars, so it's a big grid to worry about. So to be up there in the top 10, you kind of think, what would be the need to risk anything right now? Actually, we've got to look back now for 10th position. It's Rebecca Pauline, about 1.9 seconds back to Vince Peters. So that's not quite done yet, Soumil.
Yeah, that is interesting. Gavin Hall's under pressure from Rebecca Pauline. They're trying to make a move here at the keyhole perhaps next time out. Should be tricky considering the gap that is right now, but you never rule anything out towards the exit. All nice and clean, but I say the next thing with a great sense of importance, that is so far, because with 4 minutes to go and one key spot on the line, well, one key qualifying spot on the line, that is, because as it stands, both of them will be going in the feature race directly. You could still see some sense of drama coming up towards the very end. Although, I doubt that they will do something quite like that, right? They recognize that they're both in. Might as well just shake your hands, call a bit of a truce, and then see things going off towards the very end.
That would be what logic suggests, Soumil. But racing drivers, sometimes they can leave logic in the pit garage. Sometimes as well. And if I know Gavin, we don't call him full send Gav for no reason. It's kind of what was it? The first offence is his motto.
Ah, yeah, that's what it should be like, isn't it? That was something that makes for quite an entertaining race, and what more could you possibly ask for?
Indeed, absolutely, yeah. That's what we like to see. Well, this is shaping up to be a very exciting feature race, because you've got 5 cars here, all on the pace of the leaders of race 1 as well. So you're going to have a really strong pack, 10, 15 cars or so in the feature, all on almost exactly the same pace.
Exactly right. That's such a fun thing to watch out for. And right about now, we should be focusing on two different battles at the same time. The first one for the lead on the left, and the second one on your right being the one for P number 9. Lock up for Gavin Halls right there. Rebecca Pauline trying to close up. And here you look at the battle on the left-hand side as well. Going past the S's, Kevin Nielsen blocking off pretty well from Gonzo Tasdalen. But Tasdalen is also simultaneously under pressure from one Quinton Violati. Now, folks, where do you put your attention on? Well, we've got the best of both worlds for you. Thank Tyler Maxson for that.
Indeed, yes, that's the man that can, the man that is the multitasker. And oh, little bump there from Tasdalen saying to Nielsen, please get a move on. There's nothing more uncomfortable than Violati +0 on your pit board, and that's what Tasdalen's virtual pit board will be showing him right now. And he's going, I would really rather not have Violati +0 because it's such a scary thought indeed. And look, Tasdalen actually having to go on the defensive there in the number 5 car there, and Violati's thinking, oh, I'm going to have a go here. And so look at Sam Coitert with the orange wheels there. He's going to think, oh, interesting, let's get a go on this. Kevin Nielsen's looking in his mirror going, oh, God, I'm going to get away from this bunch of madmen behind me. And, of course, this is the last lap. No, it's going to be very close. Actually, in fact, this is probably the penultimate lap, actually, if my mathematics is less than brilliant. But dear me, they've almost all of us like someone's pulled the pin out the grenade here, Soumil, and it's starting to explode here at the front. But as we say that, Vince Peters was, dear me, was 9/10 of a second quicker than Rebecca Pauline and Gavin Halls last time around. So he has got the bit between his teeth, and he knows what he's chasing after.
Exactly, this is when it all tends to explode, right? In the last couple of minutes of the race, Peters is closing up on one side as Pauline tries to get a move on Gavin Halls. And here, Quinton Violati ever so closer, but going for an outside line. Sam Coitert might get something on him on the left-hand side of your screen. Good defending there by Violati, just about holding on to his position. And now Coitert is under pressure from Alexander Lauritsen. Battles everywhere, left, right and centre. This is the white flag lap, ladies and gentlemen. This is where things come to a close, and Coitert has to defend extremely hard heading into the keyhole.
Indeed it is. White flag in the air here at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course for the opening round of the PorscheSport Carrera Cup Championship. What a thriller this has been so far, and we're not even halfway yet. We've got the consolation race and then the feature as well. Kevin Nielsen, he's led from pole position, he's led the entire race, but, well, Gonzo Tasdalen is really determined to get that front row spot, get that spot alongside Maxim Ramstein on the front row for the feature. We've seen how difficult it is to overtake, so that front row, that clear view to turn 1 is clearly what he's going to be looking for. But Quinton Violati's not done there either. Lauritsen has joined in the party too. Jake Robertson just dropped off a bit, but while this is going on, we've got a battle for the transfer spot as well. That 10th, of course, top 10 go through to the feature race, and Vince Peters is absolutely on the charge, now within 3 or 4 tenths of Rebecca Pauline, but looks like he's going to hang on. It is. It's going to be Kevin Nielsen wins here in the... Oh, we've got a spinner. It's one of the Arano Esports cars. Oh, they sneak through. They sneak through, but Vince Peters is going to get the last spot in the transfer anyway. And what did we say about that late on mistake? Soumil, my word.
I don't even know what to say. That is such a dramatic ending, and you've got to feel Nick Schulte-Wisserman. He just had it there, but then that spin towards the very end, and he has lost his slot. Drama everywhere, Peter, and dare I say this, as expected.
Oh my, Nick Schulte-Wisserman. Oh, he must be absolutely devastated. Had that transfer spot, and now he's got to go through the consolation race. I think we'll see a man driving very, very angry with himself in the consolation race. There might be a few in that consolation race with that attitude. So, confirming your results then, Kevin Nielsen wins by just 2 tenths of a second from Gonzo Tasdalen. Quinton Violati getting on the podium and holding out Sam Coitert for 3rd place. Alexander Lauritsen was 5th, followed by Jake Robertson. Alexei Nezov getting in there for Urano Esports. Gavin Hall's brilliant drive from the Vampire for PorscheSport. Rebecca Pauline also fantastic. Had Gavin under the cosh all race long. And Vince Peters, well, that race, that really hard charge over those last few laps, he was paid for very, very handsomely there, Soumil. And we look at our grid for the consolation race. So only 10 spots from this race. Miroslav Nostalgic starts on pole position alongside the absolutely devastated Nick Schulte-Wisserman. Row 2 will be Dylan Burse and Alexander Hetmank. Nick Rowland and Marcel Jochheim start on row 3. This looks more like a feature race grid than a consolation race grid. My word, some of the names on here. David Ward will start from 7th with Gailham Pipers in 8th. Chris Walsh and Laurent Benso will start on the 5th row, followed by Gaten Anger and Bastian Matler. Starting on the 7th row of the grid for this consolation race will be Marco Jaeger and Jaime Fierro, followed by Nelson Costa de Souza, Lewis Ward, Jeffrey Garzotto and Clément Andriot in the 137 car for Team Cast, the French outfit. In 19th will be Andrew Picario, followed by Martin Donati, Kirill Kolobuksov, Oscar Wilkins, Jan Smits and Magnus Terkildsen. In 24th, and our last few drivers, Wayne Sanderson, Steve Levalle, Mark Jones, Martin Spalek, Justin Rem and Hendrik Lichtenhagen for Panda Racing Team. We've got a few more. Jeremy Lemire, David DeWitt, Aaron Volkerts, James Parker, Senk Inkuglo and Thomas Guldelian. Well, 36 cars, 10 spots for the feature. That I don't like those maths, Soumil.
Yep, not really working out in favour of those not quite at the head of the field. But then again, we've seen stuff happen just a couple of minutes ago, Peter. I wouldn't count anything out.
No, definitely not. And as you can see, our drivers all the way back around the carousel. So really difficult start here. The lights are being prepared. We're about ready to go for this 10-minute consolation race. It's fast, it's furious, it's the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. We're off again for the third time here at Mid-Ohio. And look at these drivers fly through, fiercely through the opening part of the lap there, and well, looks like the 105 of Miroslav Nostalgic gets away clean, has to go super defensive on Dylan Burse and Nick Schulte-Wisserman. Oh dear, Miroslav Nostalgic's gone off, he's in the wall. Oh, and we've got another car off there as well, and that is disastrous because with only 10 minutes, Soumil, getting back into that top 10 is going to be a very tall order indeed.
Absolutely, that's his chances crumpled up in a matter of seconds. But Burse is now going side by side with Nick Schulte-Wisserman for the lead of the race, and Burse gets it done for himself. What a frantic opening start to this race, and you've got to feel right. How crazy is it? How intense is it for Miroslav Nostalgic? Early on, there was such a good chance of him advancing to the feature, and poof, it has disappeared.
Yeah, Miroslav Nostalgic back running again, but in 28th position. So the chances of him making that top 10 surely now over from pole position in the feature. In the consolation, my apologies. Wow. Just shows you cannot afford any mistakes here in the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. It's just going to be such a tough season for these drivers. We look at the 197 of Lewis Ward there, who's the guy. Well, he's going to be holding the parcel when the music goes off because he's in 11th position right now. Jaime Fierro up ahead of him, so he needs to move forward. In fact, Lewis Ward now classified in 9th. He's got past Fierro in the 50. Now, my apologies, we're getting all kinds of figured out here. So, Lewis Ward is in 9th, showing as in. We've got two Wards. My apologies. We've got David and Lewis.
Yep, David Ward in P number 9 and Lewis Ward in P number 11. A good way to track them would be by their car numbers. David with 169 and Lewis with 197. And what's interesting, Peter, apart from the racecraft car spinning, is another car dipping down into China Beach. No sunbathing there today, unfortunately.
No, definitely not. Jeffrey Garzato, he's right down into the very far end of China Beach as well. So that's his challenge thwarted. So the 197 of Lewis Ward, the black and red machine. Oh, we've got a spinner on the. Oh my goodness me. Oh, it's pandemonium. Absolutely pandemonium. That is the last place where you want to crash. It's so fast through there. It's blind over the crest. And of course, it is so. The change of undulation there just maybe just lost grip and spun around.
Yeah, proper thunder and storms there, Thunder Valley. 3 cars involved in that battle. It is characterized by that thick smoke that's a part of the new iRacing update, and it is so eerie, right? Watching them spin out, watching the smoke and just hearing them crash. We'll take a quick replay of that in a bit, but a crazy incident. It has changed things up quite a fair bit, Peter, in terms of the order.
That it does. We've got drivers really kind of getting, you can tell the sort of desperation really from the drivers. That's the number 123 car there that's hit a bit of issues. That's Gayton Anger. Now that is a, oh dear. Oh, and Gayton just, well, not really anything the drivers following behind could do. And Gayton had lost it. And I tell you what, Gayton is a seriously fast driver. And I think that shows you the level these guys are running at and the pressure that they're under to perform.
Yeah, exactly. We saw Gayton making such a good save in the first heat race, but then again, save it once and the second time it's quite less likely to happen, even more so when you do it at the S's. Such a hard place to keep a car in control. And then the worst part is that he collected another couple of drivers. That is the one that stings the most, because not only do you get your own downside, but unfortunately a few others have to suffer as well. But let's put that incident behind us. Let's put away all the negativity and focus more on the positivity here, because this is a battle that is turning out to be quite interesting. Alexander Hetmak is closing up and Nick Schulte-Wisserman is right there in P number 2 in the 34 Urano car. This has just allowed Dylan Burst to relax and just stretch his legs, Peter. It's a lovely day. I heard Mid-Ohio has quite lovely weather. Driving around here in a Porsche, fun thing to do, right?
Indeed it would be, yes, absolutely. I would think it would be quite enjoyable. In fact, well, as we said, Mid-Ohio has been a very happy hunting ground for Porsche over the years. In fact, this was where the Porsche RS Spider LMP2 car got its first ever outright victory, beating the Audi R8 in its last ever race in top level competition.
Now that's a fact that I had no clue about. There's the first, Peter.
I've got to get up pretty early to slip one past you, Soumil.
It's lovely to see the kind of fascinating stats that you always come up with, and there's already so many of them on the first round itself. It should be a lovely journey throughout the season.
I'm going to have to. I've set a precedent now. I'm going to have to make sure I keep coming up with with some more. But Dylan Burst, our leader, and you said he is. He's managed to clear away, get a bit of a comfortable gap, and you'll be very, very glad of that indeed, because it is just so frantic. And as we saw, you don't even have to make a mistake yourself. If you're in the mid-pack, you just need someone to spin in front of you, and that is your day done. So we see here a bit of a train forming up behind David Ward, Jaime Fierro in there as well. And we've got Lewis Ward now up into 8th with Precario behind. And we've got it, in fact, behind the 53 car, we've got the number 22 of Magnus Terkelsen, who's in the Porsche factory colours. So he's put the Porsche factory car. Oh dear, that's not very factory. That's the side check there. And well, he'd be going, excuse me, I'm a factory driver. How dare you side door me like that? Oh, and again.
Man, goodness me, the tempers are properly flying up here at Mid-Ohio. It's a hot and sunny day, I can tell you, and it is quite clearly getting too hot to handle around here.
That it is. Yeah, absolutely. Now, Terkelsen will be absolutely furious, because I think he lost 2 positions there on that run down to China Beach, and that's put him from having the last ticket to the ball to being left outside in the cold. So Terkelsen will be hoping that there's a little bit more argy-bargy ahead and he can try and fight back. But we know, well, we saw this last season, didn't we? Didn't we, Soumil? The Wild Animals team, they
yes.
certainly are, they never can be accused of not being on brand. They are aggressive when they want to be.
Oh, absolutely. The Wild Animals team have produced quite a few entertaining moments in the first season of the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. And they just made shows so much fun to watch. Some moves really impressive, some moves really aggressive. Again, when you have that brand of driving, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Let's hope that this season it's more in a positive sense. Racecraft once again coming in. That is getting ever so close. They've tough slightly wide off. Good battle, this one.
Absolutely superb. And the thing is, if you make even a slight mistake on the exit, you've got 2 or 3 cars that just swamp you. That is just how close it is, and you can see there Precario now out of the transfer spot. So he one corner makes a tiny mistake, and well, back to back to thinking, oh dear, all of a sudden I don't have the ticket to the dance. I've got to try and move forward. And I tell you what, Kirill Kolobuksov, he's the man on the move. He's the one who's cutting through the field with surgical precision, and in fact lapping quite a bit quicker than these other guys around him. His best lap of 124.1. All the rest of the guys, the best they can muster is in the mid to high 124. So he's got some good paces, Kirill Kolobuksov.
Indeed, yeah, even faster than Andrew Procario right behind him, so I think he should be somewhat fine in that case, but that could also be differing rather when we have battles like this one going on, because if you fight side by side, your pace can quite often be slower and allow drivers behind you to get closer. This is Kolobuksov's chance if he wants to get an upgrade in terms of a feature race qualifying position, because Oscar Wilkins is fighting hard with Ward. This could be rather spicy right here. Lewis Ward having to defend quite hard here.
Indeed, and the thing is, you've got 4 seconds covering 6th all the way down to 16th. So you know, any of these guys could find themselves out of the reckoning, and anyone at the back absolutely isn't out of it yet. And you got to think, with these guys racing so close together, and well, there you go. That's exactly what can happen. Bang! 2 cars taken out. That is the number 22 of Terkelson, who's been a little bit bashed about. So Porsche factory colours or not, he is come off second best there.
Yeah, unfortunately you do into situations like that so easily in the heat of the battle, and it just has to be a case of him putting his head down and trying to salvage what he can from the remaining 10 minutes. We take a quick replay for this one. Yikesy. Just gets tapped around, Peter. Just gets tapped around, and what's worse, a couple of other drivers get tapped around too.
Indeed, yeah, it's so narrow through there, and of course he was just broadside across the circuit. Nothing that his competitor could really do there. I think it snagged up the number 74 of Jeremy Lemire, who was really unlucky. Yeah, there he is. Jeremy now having a battle with Martin Donati for 13th spot, and Clement Andriot, the other cast car, up into 12th position. So that changes the complexion of things a little bit. That now puts Kirill Kolobuksov in the transfer position, so he's actually dropped back slightly, and Oscar Wilkins now up into 9th position.
Indeed, Oscar Wilkins having a bit of a tricky time in the first heat, slipping and sliding away into China Beach, but now we try to see a move being made by Lewis Ward right there. Look at this, he's under pressure, right? What do you do in a situation like this, Peter? It's the perennial debate that you have. Do you defend from the car behind you, or do you just go on the counter-aggressive and fight against the car up ahead of you? It's a tricky place, being right in the middle of a car train.
Well, you've got to be multitasking, don't you? Because you've got to be, like you say, trying to make sure you're pressuring the car in front, trying to make sure you don't get mugged from behind, and all the while you're trying to tame this bucking Bronco that is a Porsche 911 GT3 Cup, and there now was the number 113 of Jaime Fierro. Was he pushed or did he fall there? It looked very close there, Soumil. I couldn't tell.
Likewise, we'll take a quick look at the replay once again, but the action just never ceases to stop, right? Man, this is interesting. We'll have a quick look at it once again, but still the battle's nice, clear and easy. Only so far. We take a look at it once again, the replay from the perspective of Lewis Ward. Coming past towards the Thunder Valley section, and...
Oh, there it is.
Yep, there it is.
Super work from our producer Tyler Maxson there, and just slowing it down at the right moment and giving us the confirmation that Lewis Ward sending Fierro out of the vital position. Now Fierro is in 11th and now has 2 seconds to get back up to this pack. So you got to think for Jaime Fierro, he's going to hope that these guys are all going to start fighting, and that's certainly been the case so far. But oh, it's such a... There's so many subplots, isn't there, Soumil? Do they fight? Do they not? It's just... Oh, it must be exhausting behind the wheel.
Exactly, and think of race control as well, trying to make a judgment on a situation like this one. Really crazy stuff being right there. But that's the fun of it, Peter. That's the fun for race control and the drivers as well. The charm of a hard race like this one. Let's see what they can make of in the last 7 odd minutes right here. Kirk on a books off as well. Looking at his pace, he has kind of dropped off a little bit, but I can kind of account it to, say for instance, the kind of battles that's been going on. But there, he loses his line a little bit, and Andrew Procario got it rather close back there.
Yep, he did. Now this is just that last tense part of the race, the last 6 minutes, where this is where it can get really spicy indeed, because if you're in those last few transfer spots, you're never safe until the checker flag goes out, as we've seen. Of course, just ask Nick Schulte-Wisserman. He'll tell you could even see the checkered flag and you're still not safe. You're only safe once you've gone past it. So as we go into the closing spots of the race, you know, Jeremy Lemire not out of it. Neither is Jaime Fierro, and Martin Donati, Clement Andriot. They're all still in with just a slither of a chance, Soumil, but they need a bit of help from the drivers in front to trip up.
Yeah, exactly. You don't kind of hope on anything bad happening to other drivers, but desperately, that is what they need if they want to get a better result in this situation. They'll be doing what they possibly can, and that is drive like hell.
Yep, absolutely. That's kind of, sometimes there is, you can overthink things, can't you? Sometimes it just send it is sometimes the best the best policy in all forms of life. But Nick Rowland, now I suspect, Soumil, I'm only speculating, but I suspect that might be a drive-through penalty for Lewis Ward.
That has to be indeed. This time Race Control have not quite come on the YouTube chat and mentioned it, but indeed we have seen it on the screen, a drive-through penalty for an incident like that. Testament to Race Control, right, constantly working, being live right there, making decisions as quickly as they can to make sure that the end result is as representative as it possibly can be. Meanwhile, fights going on here throughout the field, and the Volante car, the 44 machine, in the thick of it.
Yep, it's we see here the number 44 machine of Oscar Wilkins running up in 6th place now is Oscar. So he's just kept his nose clean, much cleaner than, like you mentioned, Soumil, in the heat, of course, went bounding off into China Beach, and that was the reason why he got stuck in the consolation race, but powering forward at pace, and well, he'll be starting, if he can hold this position, he'll start just around the mid part of the top 30. He'll be in about 25th, 26th, usually something like that. So we'll see. The main thing is get in the feature, because if you don't get in the feature, the scoring, well, the points just drop off dramatically.
Exactly, yeah. It's one thing to make it into the feature, and then a different thing to fight for good positions over there. And for Oscar Wilkins, the target is quite simple. Let's just get in there and see what we can make of it right there. And behind, this is where the fun begins, right? Because David Ward is right there, and somewhat uncharacteristic for a Porsche driver, he's flashing quite hard, showing his, maybe just trying to distract him or just showing a statement of intent of sorts. With 4 minutes left, well, he has to do quite a fair bit to back it up.
He maybe has an Audi for his daily driver, and he just gets into the habit of flashing the headlights. Yep, these cars, we should maybe, you hear a lot of stories about old race mechanics playing practical jokes on their drivers by wiring the brake of the hire car to the horn. So every time they touch the brake, the horn goes off. Maybe we should do the same, Soumil. We should get some of the drivers. If we can get a tech guru to wire up the headlight flasher with the horn. That would be good.
Are you telling me that they actually did something quite like this one? That when you brake, you actually turn the horn on as well?
Yes. So you every single time we touch the brake, and it was a well-known practical joke from many race mechanics to do that to usually to new younger drivers who are maybe needing initiation.
That is ingenious, right? I mean, I can imagine the people living close by to the racing circuits complaining about the engine noise, the horn noise they never would have thought about.
No, no, indeed, yeah, it is an absolute cracker. Now we must chat about how the positions are handed out. There is points all the way down to 51st place, but if you can only get, obviously, you can only get in the top 30 if you are in the feature. So if you're in the consolation and you don't get through to the feature, yes, you do still score some points. So that is the thing, is that even if you're not getting that transfer spot, you've just got to limit the damage as much as we can.
Yeah, exactly. That's the main idea. And indeed, points being scored in all the races. So, of course, Martina Ward coming up with a good point and a good question, rather. And the answer to that is yes, indeed. So the feature race, if you qualify, you do get more points for that. That's why the push for it. Not everyone can win in the feature race, definitely, or maybe even qualify for the cash prizes, but you are building up towards it towards the end of the season, right? And definitely, by being in the feature race, you are subject to more points inevitably. That one aspect coming into perspective. 1 minute and 32 seconds left to go, Peter. The battles just never cease to end here. Never.
Never. No, there's always something for us to talk about, isn't there? Which gives me incredibly limited time to come out with more facts for you, Soumil. But I try and fit them in when I can. But no time just now, because Nick Rowland, as we see, this is the 74 car, Jeremy Lemire, who's recovered. Remember, Jeremy, of course, was involved in that incident with a spinning car, and he got blocked to come to a complete stop. He's done a super job to get past. Now, the number 169 of David Ward, using the headlight flasher with liberal application here, and no wonder, probably because they know they're in the danger spot there. Of course, Precario in the 53 car, he's at the back of this pack, but has the last spot in the feature with a decent gap behind back to Jaime Fierro. But I think these drivers know that any slight slip up is going to mean the difference between them racing in the feature or watching it here on RaceSpot TV.
I mean, both of them are quite nice places to be in, but honestly, just driving them adds that extra bit of charm, and so you're much more likely to fight extra hard for it as we come right down to the very end of the race.
Indeed, so the white flag will be being prepared. Our leader, Dylan Burris, will have just gone over the line, I think. Where is Dylan? Yep, he will have done. So another lap to go. That's the last thing they needed to see. So all these drivers are going to have to go around again. I hope they've got enough fuel on board, because this is pretty much as long as the race could possibly be. Again, more headlight flashing as well. So who knew that these wards, they do like a bit of flashing, Soumil?
And they are finding their way out to be quite well indeed, haven't they? Just one of them having a really good job in terms of getting in the feature is the other one not. That is David Ward in the feature, and Lewis Ward unfortunately finding himself only in P16 as it stands.
Indeed, that's really not what we would... Lewis Ward, a very, very fast driver indeed. He will be disappointed with that start to this season here in the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. We know he's got more pace than that, but I feel that we're going to be saying that a lot across this season, Soumil, because it's so fiercely competitive. There's so much depth throughout the field that your mistakes will be punished so much more. But the checkered flag is being prepared for Dylan Burst, the young superstar from down under, in the number 68 Vendaval Sim Racing machine, is your winner in the consolation race and progresses to the feature. Now, of course, should we also have as well, we have Schulte Visserman as well, Nick Schulte Visserman in the 34 car. He might well have dropped the ball in the last moment of his heat, but gets through in second position from the consolation. So he recovers the situation with class and style, Soumil.
Exactly. Nice, calm and clean for him this time out. No pressure, no mistakes. Quite the comeback drive, and hopefully he carries the same momentum down into the feature race.
Indeed, he will. So, well, what some great action here in the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. Let's have a look at the results and see who is going through to the feature race here at Mid-Ohio. Dylan Burst then confirmed as your consolation race winner, followed by Nick Schulte Visserman, Alexander Hetmank, Nick Rowland, Marcel Jochheim, Oscar Wilkins, Jeremy Lemire, David Ward, Kirill Kolobuksov, and Andrew Precario for Racecraft Esports is the last man through the door. So these 10 drivers will go through to the feature race here at Mid-Ohio, and we have that coming up for you very soon here on RaceSpot TV. Do not go anywhere. The drivers will be getting prepared, and it's been a pretty it looks like a pretty hot and sunny day there at Mid-Ohio, Soumil. And of course, here in iRacing, every weather condition is simulated exactly as it would be in the real world. And of course, there's hotter temperature, that heats the track up, and once you go past a certain stage, an excessively high track temperature is going to make it very greasy and slippy for these drivers in the future.
Indeed, yeah, and it actually messes up with their braking points quite often as well, because as the temperature evolves, drivers initially are accustomed to one braking point, right? And if the grip levels initially fall down, so you have to brake slightly earlier, so you might just see cases of drivers shooting off their braking point and ending up in that grass. And we all know what happens when you do that here on iRacing. It just slides off and the car no longer stays in control. Worse still, it's a Porsche, hardly controllable on the track. Putting it on the grass, bad idea.
Bad idea indeed. So there are your weather conditions then. 27 degrees air temperature. So that will result in a pretty high track temperature, 34 degrees Celsius on the track. So that's going to make it pretty greasy and pretty slippy. So of course, this is the feature race. This is where the big points are played out. And who is going to take it? Soumil, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I apologise. Who's your pick for this feature race?
I actually am slightly confused about it, but considering the way Maxime Ramstein performed in the first one, just the commanding nature that he has had, I think it'll be hard to go anywhere apart from him. But that said, right, all the other drivers have impressed us so much too in the first heats. Let's see. Let's actually not speculate as much and let's enjoy the moment as it comes in, because seriously, this is going to be a mad first feature race.
It certainly will be indeed. I shouldn't let you go first. I should have chosen Maxime Ramstein, but I think the one thing is for sure is that Maxime Ramstein, well, looking at, as we mentioned his pace earlier on, his outright pace was just a little bit quicker than those in race 2, or heat 2 I should say. But Kevin Nielsen, very consistent, keeping a lot of drivers behind him throughout the race, but just that little bit, a couple of tenths off Maxime Ramstein. Now that is enough, that is not enough that Maxime Ramstein could just clear off into the distance straight away, but I think if he's allowed to get into a rhythm, then he might well do that. So for Kevin Nielsen and the rest of the drivers at the front of the pack, they've kind of got to upset Maxime Ramstein's rhythm early to try and keep him within the leading pack.
No, exactly right. That's pretty much what we saw with one Alexander Thiem as well last season. With these drivers of that sort who just love to dominate, you have to irritate them. You have to really pester them early on and force them into making a mistake. Otherwise, the chances just become slimmer and slimmer as time passes on.
Indeed it does. It's great to see so many people joining us for the opening round of the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. Thanks so much to you all. Very much obliged for your company here on Racespot TV. And this is how the drivers will line up for the opening feature race of the season. Maxime Ramstein will start on pole position alongside Heat 2 winner Kevin Nielsen. Row 2 will be Suelio Almeida and Guonzo Tasdelen. Row 3 is Brian Lockwood and Quentin Villati. Starting on the 4th row of the grid here today at Mid-Ohio will be Kane Halliburton and Sam Coitert, and Florian Lebiger and Alexander Lauritsen round out the top 10. In 11th is Kamil Grabowski, and he will start alongside Jake Robertson on the 6th row of the grid. In the 7th row will be Matthias Burke and Alexei Nezov, with Pascal Costa and Gavin Hall starting on row 8. Row 9 will be Mike Weisekopseiker and Rebecca Pauline from Fiercely Forward after a very strong run in her heat. Nick Harwood will start from 19th, followed by Vince Peters, Dylan Burst, Nick Schulte of Westerman, Alexander Hetmang and Nick Rowland rounding out the top 24. And our final 6 drivers who will start here in this 30-car grid: Marcel Jochheim, Oscar Wilkins, Jeremy Lemire, David Ward, Kirill Kolobuksov and Andrew Precario, the last man through the door in the consolation race, and he takes up the final spot on the grid. They will wind their way all the way around from the start-finish straight right back to the exit of the carousel corner as well. So that's quite an important part as well, Soumil, because it's not often you're trying to launch the car but then also turn and steer at the same point for these guys starting near the back.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's a tricky position to be in, right? But it goes to show that Mid-Ohio, very much an old school racing circuit designed back in the day, with no real intent of having so many cars racing on it, but here we are. In fact, IndyCar has an ingenious solution for that. They have a rolling start right after the keyhole.
They do indeed. It's a very good solution for it as well. And when you first watch it, you think, what's going on here? But yes, it is a very good solution indeed. Of course, the Mid-Ohio circuit was the brainchild of Les Griebling, who persuaded local business to invest in his dream. And, well, who is going to be having their dream today in the feature race here at Mid-Ohio in the PorscheSport Carrera Cup? Look at the jostling already as they fly across the start line, and it looks like Maxim Ramstein has got away clean from pole position. Can anybody... no! He's made a little bit of a mistake on the exit of turn 1, and Kevin Nielsen hits the front.
Indeed, what a start that is from Kevin Nielsen, the winner of the second heat, but not a good start for a couple of the racecraft drivers.
Oh, of course, the Racecraft Esports had so many cars running up front, but a number of them tearing off into the gravel there at the keyhole down towards China Beach. They go, oh, we've got one car. Oh, it's one of the Arano Esports cars, smashes into the wall on the back straight, and oh, it's Koiter around. Grabowski's off as well. Alexei Nezov coming to kill the brake. Oh God, that's so close. Goodness me, it's all kicking off here in the feature race.
Exactly, and just some of the names, Peter, that got taken out of that first lap. Brian Lockwood, Quinton Violate, Nick Schulte-Wisserman, all big contenders for this championship.
Wow, and of course a longer race here in the feature race, 30 minutes, and a lot of cars out of the reckoning after 2 corners. Unbelievable. We will try and get a replay for you folks to try and somehow dissect what on earth went on there. It's such a tight corner there at the keyhole, but nevertheless, Kevin Nielsen in the number 3 car is away in the lead, and Maxim Ramstein, well, he's got a bit of a rival.
He has indeed. Kevin Nielsen just counter-attacking and doing exactly as you said early on, Peter, irritating Maxim Ramstein and getting that place in. But here's the replay. Brian Lockwood, you can see him, and oh yeah, he saw some smoke from the back of Gnosa Tasdelin's car, got blinded by it, and Quinton Violate unfortunately followed on through as well. The worst possible start that could have happened for 2 of the biggest competitors in the championship. Oh boy.
Oh boy, indeed, yes. So they've got a lot of work to do now. We've got Nick Rowland in the pit lane, Schulte-Wisserman in the pit lane as well. So quite an amazingly high rate of attrition here in the opening lap of the feature race. But now here we go. Here's our Alcontech.com replay, and absolute pandemonium there. Now Nick Schulte-Wisserman, he's getting jam sandwich. Oh my God. Oh dear me. That's a little bit over the top, I would say, Soumil. That was, he was getting squeezed there.
Yeah, I had literal shivers watching that. Crazy stuff. Back at the live pictures though, amazing battle going on between the 47 and the 48, that is Florian Lebigre and Alexander Lauritsen, and Lauritsen has got the jump ahead of Lebigre right now, heading out of turn number 1, Peter, but around the outside is looking like it for Lebigre. Down he goes, still close enough, and the AXA Simsport holds on to the position right now. The draft though could be critical.
It will be, yep, the draft will be very, very important. You can actually see, I think this is a bit of NASCAR bump drafting here from Lebigre to Lauritsen, and Jake Robertson there as well for Apex Racing Team. A great start for Jake, running in 6th position at the moment, and really in the driving seat, actually, you have to say. And he's he's on the headlight flasher button as well. And of course, Jake's teammates, of course, very much a big presence in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. Of course, Jamie Fluke, Johan Harth and Jeff Giazzi for Apex Racing Team, but also don't forget the Rahal Letterman Lanigan Esports team, which are a part of that organisation, and Sam Koiter really, really unlucky there to get spun around. Goodness me, that's really, really unfortunate for the Dutch driver.
Exactly, so much promise comes along with Sam Coiter, and just to see him being spun around at the opening lap like that one, painful, but still the entertainment will keep on continuing because the battles at the top are never ever quite over.
Nope, they never are. 25 minutes to go, a long way to go here at Mid-Ohio. Now, Jake Robertson just playing this one very, very smart indeed. Now, coming back to the point with the Apex Racing team and Rahal Letterman Lanigan, they will, of course, have very, very good setups for these cars, and Jake will be able to use that to his advantage in this series because these cars, as we mentioned, they're fickle beasts to set up, and if you've got that golden, as Jeremy Burgess and Valentino Rossi used to call it, the gunpowder setting, then it's you know, it's a good place to be.
Exactly, it just sets you up so well, and that is even after the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car has kind of been reduced, right? The set of options have been closed down a little bit more, and there are only so many limited changes that you can do, but the setup still seemingly such a critical element of it. Working with those geniuses in the World Championship, well, that must give him quite a fair bit of an advantage. Meanwhile,
speaking of, yeah, exactly. Kevin Nielsen, wow, Kevin Nielsen and Maxim Ramstein getting involved in a proper duel here for the lead, and actually they're putting a bit of time between themselves and Guonzo Tasdelen in just behind. The last time around, the 123.8 for Kevin Nielsen, 123.7 for Maxim Ramstein, and a 124.0 for Guonzo Tasdelen. So just a couple of tenths. And I tell you what, if they can just a couple of tenths a lap, and before you know it, they'll be clear. And I think that's maybe what Maxim Ramstein is playing here. I don't think he's showing his full hand just yet, Soumil.
Exactly right. Maxim Ramstein kind of holding it off and keeping it there. It's a strategy that has worked quite a fair bit in the last season of the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. There's no need for any sense of urgency. Around the 15-odd minute mark is when we see the driver chasing in the feature race usually start to get a bit more aggressive, and by the time we get to the last 10 minutes, that would be the perfect slot to try and get your move done completely and have no worries towards the very end of the race. Who knows, perhaps Ramstein trying to make sure that they go with the same strategy. Let's see.
Well, I tell you what, we've got to give a big shout out to Gavin Halls. The vampire for PorscheSport is up into 8th position, started on the 8th row of the grid in 16th place and is now up to 8th. So an amazing start to the season for our Gav. And we're looking now at the 199 of Harwood. Oscar Wilkins in there as well in the 44 car. Almeida, oh dear, Almeida spun. Oh, and dearie me, he's got caught the 138 of Burke as well, Matthias Burke, and looked like there might have been a bit of the Bargy of the Argy variety there.
Quite literally there, Peter. Who would have thought that we would get so much of carnage early on and then in the mid part too? Insane accident. Soumil Almeida, we thought that he'll have a much better race than he's actually having currently, and poor man, these crashes never help anyone out, but when you take out someone else as well simultaneously, my apologies, just makes up all the more worse. Hit slightly there. And what could the 138 do? It's such a narrow track, right? Barely anything for them to do as well. Unfortunately, rally crossing a little bit, but losing immense amount of time.
It's just really, really unlucky. Yeah, you can see here the number 138 car of Matthias Berg. He's just driving along, minding his own business, and oh dear, there's a car, there's broadside. And you know what? If he just snicked the, he just caught the edge of the car, and that really made the accident a whole lot worse. And Rebecca Pauline caught up in that as well, and Rebecca was running super strong up until that point. She's managed to keep going in 15th place, but that's really, really unlucky for Rebecca there as well in the fiercely forward car.
Yeah, what more can you do in a situation like this one? It's just damage limitation. When you see such a major accident happening right in front of your eyes, just run away, just try to find a clean spot, and some did, some didn't. That's just the nature of incidents like this one.
Yep, exactly. And what is it they say? That's racing, and it never seems to be It never seems to be consoling enough, though. It's only time that can console such things. But this has been a superb drive so far from Jake Robertson, now up into the top 5 overall in the 122 car. Now we're going to see how he got past Florian Lebiger. Florian getting a little bit of a wiggle on the way in, and actually Florian playing very smart there, actually, Soumil. You could tell he'd made a mistake, but he was thinking, you know what, you see some drivers who try to gather up a car that's never going to be gathered up, and they end up in the fence. Florian did a good job there to just think, okay, just hold the brake down. I might lose a spot, but I'm still here to carry on the fight.
True, he's just looked at the bigger picture, and that's what you must be doing, because this is not a championship that ends here today, ends tonight. There are so many rounds, 7 of them to be precise. You want to be playing the long game, right? You might be losing one position for now, fine. Don't get over yourself, do not make any key major mistakes. It's fine if you lose one position, at least it's better than not crashing out and ending up costing the entire season in the long run.
Well, speaking of heroic saves, Rebecca Pauline there, of course, involved in having to avoid that spin with the car ahead, did a super job to keep it out the barrier and not to be wrecked out of the race completely. In fact, only lost one space, as we're being told. So brilliant stuff again from Rebecca Pauline, and I'm sure all the folks at Fiercely Forward will be very, very happy with their fast lady here.
Yeah, very, very happy and very, very scared for a second as that incident happened right there. That's just the kind of intense sprint racing nature that we have here. Accidents do happen, and quite often you have to be on your toes to dodge incidents like this one.
Yes, you do indeed. Now back at the front, it's still as they were. Kevin Nielsen, 124.082. Maxim Ramstein, 124.026. How close do you want it? And well, still Maxim Ramstein, the fastest lap of the race, 123.5. Kevin Nielsen, a 123.8. So it seems that Maxim Ramstein does have an edge on outright pace, but Nielsen has the track position. Well, he does have the track position for now, but Maxim Ramstein appears to have had enough.
That's the best way to put it, to be honest with you. And Nielsen, to be honest with you, seems to have the edge right here. Now, it may sound like a cliche thing to say, right? Oh, he's got track position. He's gonna be the one that has the edge. But it's not. It's ever more important here. Not Road Atlanta. It's Mid Ohio. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. But it's so tricky to pass here in so many different places. It is narrow, it is tight, it is tricky. Meanwhile, Rebecca Pauline having to defend right there, and Sam Coiter on his comeback drive makes up one more position. That's a rare case of a move being made very cleanly. Maxim Ramstein has to do something similar, and Kevin Nielsen, we've seen this today so many times, Peter, not an easy cookie.
No, definitely not. And of course, Kevin did not blink at all in his heat. He had a huge queue of cars behind him, and he did not miss an apex all race long and held off his competitors. But battles going on all over the place here. Great work from our producer Tyler Maxson as well, a man of many talents, both behind the production booth switches and behind the weird race car as well. And well, Kevin Nielsen still hanging on here. And what's interesting though is that Kevin Nielsen just sticking to his pace. He's got Maxim Ramstein right behind him, and actually that has allowed Guangzhou Tasdelen to now make this a 3-car battle, and that might mean that we might see Ramstein make a move here, because you've got to think he doesn't want to invite any more cars to the party. What is it they say? Three's a crowd. So 16 minutes and 46 seconds to go here at Mid-Ohio, about halfway through this race, and we're turning into a real chess match, if you like, between Kevin Nielsen, Maxim Ramstein and Guangzhou Tasdelen. Now, Alexander Lauritsen is next along, but over 3 seconds behind, and these guys are on such a hot pace that you've got to think it's going to be difficult for Lauritsen to come and join in. However, Will Maxim Ramstein make his move, or will he just wait and keep his powder dry? This is very much almost a Marquez tactics for any MotoGP fans watching. You're back, Soumil. There we go. So yes, this is something that Marc Marquez really developed over the last few seasons, where he would just sort of sit in the leading group, and then about 5 laps to the end, out comes the pin, and boosh, hits the afterburners, and off he goes. Now, I wonder if that's what Maxim Ramstein is plotting here.
Yeah, exactly. This should be something fun to watch out for. He's going on the aggressive, mind you, completely riding off on the curb. So seemingly, he has a greater sense of urgency on this lap, reflected by him moving to the outside line to make a move right here. And Tasdalen is also being smart, putting his car on the right place down the inside line. He could be picking up the scraps right here. We haven't quite seen much of him here on RaceSpot TV. This could be his chance. Maybe from B3, he could jump right up to B1. But first, Maxim Ramstein to the inside line. He sends. This is the move for the lead, Peter.
It is indeed, but look, you get the switch back here as well, and I think Kevin Nielsen knows that, but Maxim Ramstein really defending very firm, but Ramstein going to try and go for the inside and seal the move up. Kevin Nielsen knows how important it is. They bang wheels. Oh my word, and Kevin Nielsen, dearie me, well, should we call him the goalkeeper? We know that the Danes have got a good history as being good goalkeepers, but my goodness me, nothing gets past Kevin Nielsen.
Literally, what a defense he has put up here today against Maxim Ramstein. And sorry for the wordplay, but Ramstein has to look deep down into his core to try and find something special to go past Nielsen right here.
He really does, absolutely. I tell you what, that's going to be their new marketing slogan, Soumil. You should send them an invoice for that one. As you see, Kevin Nielsen, I mean, that was Peter Schmeichel-esque. It was just a huge one-handed save there. And Ramstein thinking, okay, might going to have to come out with a few different pages of the playbook here to try and get by. Of course, 40 minutes to go, still plenty time to go. And you've got to think also that Gonzo Tasdelen is watching all this going on, going, maybe I'll just sit here and enjoy the action, maybe do a bit of moonlighting camera work for Racespot TV, and then maybe pick up the scraps if these guys get together. Because I tell you what, they were very close to it there, Soumil. A little bit of rubbing of fenders, of rubbing of wheels.
But that's what separates these drivers from the rest in the grid, right? Proper top guys. Sometimes it spills over. For these folks, it spills over so less. That's the best part. They know how to make it hard, but they know how to keep it absolutely clean. That's the beauty of the kind of racing that we get to see here on the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. And the opening round already delivering big time. 13 odd minutes to go for Maxim Ramstein. And you're right about Tasdalen as well. That's a lovely place for you to be in. Debut in the series, P3, you've got a lovely looking car as well. And so it just remains to be the perfect place for them to be in, because he does not need to force the issue so hard. He knows that Ramstein will force the way through. He knows that he'll go for the move. And that's just the perfect place for him to be in. The best seats in the house, pretty much.
Indeed, absolutely. Definitely the best seat in the house, I would say. Now, this is a really impressive charge back through the field for Sam Koiter. He was really unlucky to get caught up in that incident. Just a bit of almost a symptom, if you like, of being caught in the mid-pack. It's always a risk. And look at this. He's going to go round the outside of Kirill Kolobuksov. That's something you don't hear very often. And oh, bang! That's why. Because that might happen. Kirill Kolobuksov will have absolutely no problem in making it difficult for you to get by. And there you go. Another, tell you what, another pound in the swear jar for the headlight flash. That'd be a good way to raise money for charity, wouldn't it, Soumil? Every time a driver flashes their lights, they put a pound in the in the charity pot. But Koiter appears to have it done, and now Kolobuksov's got to worry about the 163 car of Jochheim, who's going to try and come around, and Rebecca Pauline in there too, in the fiercely forward machine, who's, because there's a space, I'll have that, and Kirill Kolobuksov, hip check, and there through comes the 17 car of Quentin Violati. Goodness me, you talk about being in a hornet's nest. That is where Rebecca Pauline finds herself right now.
Pretty much. It seems to be free real estate right here in the middle sector of the Mid-Ohio racing circuit. And Critical Buxa just found himself in just the wrong place, right? Bullied off to the outside line, and once you're there, the momentum never quite on your side in the next few sets of corners. That's why Joachim was able to force the move through as well. All I can say is smart driving there by Koiter and Joachim, getting the move done for themselves in the right place. For Kolobuksov, well, it's going to take some sort of a counter-attack to get back there. And as you can see by the way he's driving, that seems to be on the cards, Peter. He is quite frisky.
Indeed, yes, absolutely. I think that's where that comes from. When you're a go-karter, you've got to be pretty creative with your hand-to-hand combat. Now, there's an amazing battle going on here for 4th position between Lauritz and Robertson. Jake Robertson really making his way through, but as we see, Kirill Kolobuksov trying to recover, and whoa, we see the number 163 car of Joachim letting the brake off there, trying to just make sure he maintains the track position. Not the quickest way around, but if it keeps Kirill Kolobuksov at bay, that will do, and whoosh, snips his nose off there as well. Violati watching all this going, I like a bit of argy-bargy, but this is tough. And Rebecca Pauline, I think, is well, watching all of this going on, saying, at least we're picking up some playbook options here. Well, I tell you what, Soumil, isn't it good to be back? PorscheSport Carrera Cup. It's been too long, my friend.
It has been too long. October was the last time we had a race there at Spa. Back now at an FIA Grade B circuit, the kind of circuits that we love to see racing on. Not too wide. They kind of remind you the value of every single overtake, right? What a lovely place to come back in and begin this season. And look at this one, Peter. Jake Robertson also coming up and joining the flashing club. I wonder what would happen if this was the Audi Sport Carrera Cup.
They would probably have, you know how you get like
Carrera Cup. It's too good. I mean,
the Audi Sport Cup would be, yeah, you press the headlight flasher button once and it just stays on for the entire race as well. And you can also see that there's Jake Robertson here. He's giving, well, probably a good sort of 3 or 4 meters of following space. That's probably about 2 or 3 meters more than your average Audi driver's ever going to give you.
Pretty much so. I mean, good for us. That just makes for some more entertaining racing over here, at least.
Indeed, yes, indeed it is as well. But this is a super battle between Lauritz and Robertson, and of course, it would only take a slight slip from the drivers ahead, and this is all of a sudden a battle for the podium. But at the moment, Nielsen leading, and Tasdelen has got past Ramstein. So Ramstein is back to 3rd. And is 1.7 seconds behind Tasdelen. So something has happened along the way to the number 29 car of Maxim Ramstein.
This makes it curious. Because Maxim Ramstein is not the one who usually makes mistakes like this one. Even more so when in a situation where he actually has to go for overtakes. That will be one to find out right now. But this just means that debutants, Peter, Kevin Nielsen and Gronzo Tasdelen, on their first ever appearance in the PorscheSport Carrera Cup, 1 and 2. Talk about making an impact on a championship like this one.
Indeed. Well, Maxim Ramstein, I think we're going to get a look here on our Alcantech.com replay. He was a 126.2 last time around, 2 seconds off the pace, so I think this is where it's going to be. He pops out of the draft of Kevin Nielsen, lunges up the inside, and onto the grass. China lawn, we call it, and well, if you're going to make a mistake, it's all about how you recover from it, isn't it? And Maxim Ramstein, if you're going to go off at that particular corner, I don't think he could have done so with losing any less time than he did. That was a remarkable piece of recovery there from Ramstein, and with 7 minutes to go, it still gives him an opportunity to fight for this race win. But on his first lap back, a tenth slower than both Nielsen and Tasdelen. So Ramstein, he's really going to have to pull the pin here if he wants to win this race.
So you know what this reminds me of, Peter? Back in the day, just playing Gran Turismo Sport and having those scenario modes. 7 minutes to go, you're 2 seconds behind your rivals, 2 incredible rivals by the way. Can you make that comeback and take the first win in the championship? Now that will be one to watch out for. Maxim Ramstein in scenario mode properly. And the same can be said for Taz Dillon and Kevin Nielsen. And good analogy there right there for Kevin Nielsen that you pointed out, Peter. Very much like a goalkeeper, blocking off all the shots. And the Danish are pretty much known for that. But Taz Dillon also coming closer. Now this battle in the midfield. Collar books off. Oof, that got close. He's just holding on to it quite well here today.
Absolutely magnificent. This is what it's all about. And I tell you what I love about this Soumil is that this 911 Cup car, of course, is so popular racing all over the world. In fact, it's just been replaced by a brand new model, the 992 Cup car, which I'm sure we'll talk about over the season. But it's lovely, isn't it? And my goodness me, I mean, but this car, actually, when you see it race in the real world, a lot of the time it can be a little bit of follow the leader, and actually you don't see an awful lot of overtaking. But these guys are ripping up the rule book right here. And tell you what, just back at China Beach, Rebecca Pauline had a huge oversteer moment and caught it with such grace. And now back in a battle with Kirill Kolobuksov, they go side by side down to turn 1 at Mid-Ohio. That's always bold. And look at Rebecca Pauline around the outside of Kirill Kolobuksov at turn 1 at Mid-Ohio. Well, welcome to the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. Rebecca Pauline, she goes up the inside here at the keyhole and going to try and get it done, seal the move up. She does. Ah, bravo. Move of the day for me.
And locks the position up at the keyhole. Kolobuksov, though, never the one to back off from a fight. Around the outside he goes, then switches back to the inside, and the Wild Animals car sends it. And he overshoots it slightly. Pauline gets the cut back properly, and Kolobuksov makes a slight bit of contact, and Rebecca Pauline has spun around. That battle just overshot, unfortunately. Oh man, that was going out to be so well.
That's a real pity. That is such a pity because Rebecca Pauline had absolutely read Kirill Kolobuksov like a book there, let him run wide and cut back, and then, yeah, ends up being shunted off like that. That's a real pity, a real shame, but Rebecca Pauline has made her name known here in the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. She will be back. Make no mistake about that. So, Kevin Nielsen, still the leader. He has had nothing but fresh, look at this, douche. And once you get a tap from the rear there, Soumil, there's no catching it.
I thought the modern day internet terminology for that would be a slight boop, but yeah, that's far more gentle than that. On the track, though, that sort of sense of calmness and politeness just sort of goes away, and that was such a shame to see an immense battle come to a close that way.
Indeed, it is a little bit of a shame there. In fact, a very big shame to have that battle end in such a way. But it is a little bit of an occupational hazard. You can't have close racing without a little bit of RG and Bargy. But Kevin Nielsen has spent this entire, not just this entire race, but this entire race meeting with a clear view in front of him, and with his mirror full of Porsche 911s, and Taz Dillon is not letting him have this. It will be, if my math serves me, 2, possibly even 3 to go at the line. So we go into a grandstand finish here in the PorscheSport Carrera Cup, and you can see Taz Dillon really pushing, using all the room and more on the exit of turn 1. Last lap times for reference: Kevin Nielsen 124.2, Gonzo Taz Dillon 124.3, and Maxim Ramstein 124.1. So Ramstein now within 1.6 seconds, but for the Dutchman, he's really got to get a move on and hope that Nielsen and Taz Dillon start fighting.
Indeed, yeah, that is exactly what he needs. He has not been able to switch up to the top gear, Maxim Ramstein, since that unfortunate incident at China Lawn, let's put it that way. Let's see what he can do then. 1.5 seconds for him to close up in the last few laps. Then again, P10 for the P10 in the feature race is also up for grabs, and Gavin Hall's doing a good job to defend against Alexei Nazov. And Alexei Nazov last season, we did see him making some interesting moves. So let's take a look at what he can do in this scenario. But first, on the left-hand side, Kevin Nielsen, Gonzo Taz Dillon, the one for the race victory. Now this is a battle that I hadn't expected to see for the race win, but I am so glad to. It is so refreshing to see new names right up there fighting it out for the ultimate top prize. I'll be honest, I have been mighty impressed. Let's see who comes up as the victor here.
Oh, it's actually very impossible to tell, and great to see Gavin Halls here in the top 10 with Alexei Nezov. Now, Alexei Nezov, a current GT racing driver in the real world, but Gavin has a lot of real world racing experience as well. Of course, a race instructor at Bahrain International Circuit, but used to drive in British Formula Ford, believe it or not, with many names who you might be familiar with. But yeah, raced in British Formula Ford, and if you want to be trained in the art of the punch-up, Formula Ford's probably a good place to learn it.
Yeah, Formula Ford, that's pretty much like going into a bare-knuckle boxing club of sorts. That place is intense. As intense pretty much, my apologies, as this battle that we're getting right here for the lead. So, AXA Simsport and then Team Anatolia, both of them having their representation at the very top. And did you see that, Peter? Tazeren was just sliding around there heavily.
Yeah, you got to think after 30 minutes of a sprint race, there's absolutely no thought of tyre conservation or anything like that. The tyres should still be in pretty decent condition, but it's, you know, when you're pushing as hard as this, you can maybe think that it's just getting a little bit on the greasier side. And of course, these cars, they if you don't do exactly what you want them to, they will let you know, and in pretty aggressive fashion. So we're on to the final lap. White flag in the air here for round one of the PorscheSport Carrera Cup here at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, and what a thriller it has been. Now, Maxim Ramstein really pulling the pin there, 124.3, so a little bit slower than the pace at the front, so that would certainly hint that maybe the track temperature is going up, and certainly the tyres may be dropping off as well. Now, this is the last big chance for Tasdale, and here he goes. He's going to have a try. He goes. He's just going to let the brake off here. Kevin Nielsen gives him the fair room. They go up for the switchback now as well, side by side. This might even allow Ramstein to catch up. There he is at the back. He's still maybe a little bit too far away. Oh, look how close they run it. Brilliant respect from both drivers there, side by side. Nielsen versus Tasteller, and here comes Ramstein, Soumil.
Here we go then, this is it. Can Tasteller sneak in one final shot? Seemingly unlikely, but we could have something being made out of nothing here. Nielsen, what a defense, what a driver has been from him so far.
It looks like he's just got one more corner to go, and Gavin Halls and Alexei Nezov bumping and barging aside, and oh, there goes Sam Koiter. But Kevin Nielsen is your winner in the heat race, winner in the feature. Gavin Halls here battling away with Alexei Nezov. He's not letting him have it, and oh, contact there, full send. Gav Nezov gets hugely loose, just catches it in time, and oh, Alexei Nezov's just going to edge it for 11th spot. Gavin Halls in 12th. An amazing drive from the Vampire, and Kirill Kolobuksov in 16th after a pretty busy race indeed for the Wild Animals driver. Goodness me, battles all up and down the field here. We've got the number 183 machine of Alexander Hetmank, David Ward there in the 169 car, and oh, just goes in the favour of David Ward there in the 169. And next along, we would have Rebecca Pauline as well, waiting for her to come across the line. She was actually already across the line, my apologies, in 21st place. Wow, what a motor race, Soumil.
Insane, right? That's the way to begin with this sort of intensity. And Kevin Nielsen for AXA Simsport has just come in with a big bang. The gap, ladies and gentlemen, under 0.2 of a second. That is how close things are going to be throughout the season. Amazing. I've had a good Sunday.
And me too. What a way to spend it. So after 22 laps of racing, less than 2/10 of a second, Gunonzo Tasdalen gave it absolutely everything. But you've got to give Gunonzo some fantastic respect, and to Kevin Nielsen, because those guys, you cannot race any closer. But they gave themselves just enough room to one another to give us a brilliant show. Really, really impressive from both. Maxim Ramstein, well, he's not going to have it all his own way, it appears, here in the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. Third place for Maxim, but he will be a constant threat throughout the season, make no mistake about that. Alexander Lauritzen finished in fourth with Jake Robertson from the Apex Racing team, rounding out the top five. A brilliant drive for young Jake. Florian Lebiger finished in sixth, followed by Pascal Costa, Vince Peters, Mike Wessepkoop-Syker, and Sam Coiter. A great recovery from an early spin to get back to a top 10 position. Watch out for that number 28 car as the season progresses. So let's have a look at the rest. And Alexei Nezov just edging out Gavin Halls for 11th spot, but I think Gavin will be absolutely delighted with that one, to finish so high up, such a packed grid of top drivers. Nick Harwood was 13th, followed by Marcel Jochheim, Quentin Violati, Kirill Kolobuksov, Brian Lockwood, Suela Almeida, Andrew Precario, and Oscar Wilkins, rounding out the top 20. In 21st was Rebecca Pauline. Huge props to Rebecca, racing so hard, very unlucky to be spun around at the late stages of the race, but she has made her name known. Some superb stuff, and it will be great to watch her progress throughout the season. Kamil Grabowski finished in 22nd, followed by David Ward, Alexander Hetmank, Dylan Burst, Matthias Burke, Kane Halley-Burton, Nick Schulte-Wisserman, Nick Rowland, and Jeremy Lemire. Well, we have our podium finisher, third place finisher, joining us in the commentary box. Maxim Ramstein is with Soumil Arora.
Maxime, mate, firstly, have you got a copy on me, maybe?
Yes.
Okay. Bit of a tricky one for you, Maxine. Firstly, many congratulations on the win, heat number 1, but then it just slightly went out of plan in the feature race, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. The heat went according to plan, even though the racecraft guys, they were a little intimidating with their black and gold. But, managed to do that. And then the feature, yeah, just had a very poor start, massive wheel spin. Stuck behind Kevin, who, massive congrats to Kevin. He was driving really well. I just could not find a way past him. We side by side for a couple corners, and then after a while, I just had to do something, otherwise I was just stuck there. So I sent it, but completely messed it up. So yeah, that was on me. But massive congrats to Kevin. That's a really impressive drive.
Yeah, that was some performance by him. But Maxime, P3 on the broader scale of things, not a very bad result, right? That's still, on an objective sense, a very good way to begin.
Yeah, no worries. I think should be able to build on this for sure. There's a lot of points earned today. So yeah, I'm not worried about that. I just wish I could have taken home more, but I guess that's always the case if you're not first.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully next time will be slightly better. But a lot has changed since last season. You have, of course, moved to core sim racing, now competing in the Porsche Esports Super Cup as well. Can you tell us a lot more about what's happened between the end of last season and the start of this one?
Yeah, well, you gave a great summary. I qualified for the Porsche Esports Super Cup, and I moved to core sim racing. Those are the two big things, actually. So yeah, a team with a lot of experience. So I'm very, very happy to be a part of that. And I think it has translated into me being a lot faster than I was and consistent. I'm just a better driver overall because of all the time and effort put in by the team as well and by myself for the Esports Super Cup. Translates really well into these races, of course, because it's the same car. So yeah, that's a big, big help for sure.
Exactly, kind of evident today as well. Finally, mate, who would you like to give a shout out to for this result?
I would like to give a shout out to the guys at Core Sim Racing for their amazing support, and Kevin, of course, for his truly very, very good drive. So looking forward to the rest of the season. Hopefully, I can beat him sometime.
And that'll make for quite a fun battle towards the very end. Maxime, once again, many congratulations. See you around, mate.
Thank you very much.
Well, that was always so gracious is Maxime, isn't he, Soumil?
Yeah, exactly. Quite a foresight, Maxime Ramstein. Great fun to have a word with him and understand his thought process. And he's right, he actually has changed quite a fair bit in terms of his driving ability and everything since last season. So satisfying to see that happening, and we will see more stars being made right here on the PorscheSport Carrera Cup as well this season too.
We will, and I think Kevin Nielsen certainly can step right up into the limelight now as well. His performance today was nothing short of flawless in my view. I mean, to put it on pole for his heat race, keep all of the drivers behind him all of that time, and again in the feature race. And you know, in closing comments, Soumil, I mean, Kevin Nielsen's defence from both from both his rivals there, from Ramstein and from Castellan, absolutely exceptional.
Yeah, exactly. There is so much fun to watch. I had no expectations, I had no idea about who would be the folks right at the very top, but then to see Nielsen and Castellan go out there and put such a show, amazing stuff, right? It just sets you up so well for the upcoming rounds of the championship. I'm pumped to see what's going to happen next. Seriously, I can't wait for the next one.
I know, it seems like a little bit of a long wait, 2 weeks until we come back, but it will come in soon. Of course, 2 weeks today, we will be back for round 2 of the PorscheSport.com Carrera Cup season at Zolder, a proper technical challenge for our drivers and one not to be missed. A huge shout out to our title sponsor for this event, the Porsche Sport. Of course, the leading independent Porsche news site, a weekly podcast and exclusive interviews with movers and shakers of the Porsche world. Be sure to check it out. You can subscribe to the Porsche Sport podcast via your chosen podcast provider, and also keep an eye out on PorscheSport.com for exclusive interviews and features. Also, Soumil, you can follow us here at RaceSpot TV with our social medias as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've got so much great content coming up, not just in terms of sprint Porsche racing, but also for oval racing, for IndyCar action, endurance racing, the likes. Oh, skippy racing as well if you want that in your racing action too. There's so much good stuff on RaceSpot TV. You can follow us on YouTube to watch that content directly, and on all the other platforms to know exactly when we go live. Because seriously, there's a lot of good virtual racing action around here. No bias.
There certainly is. Yes, absolutely. There is indeed. Well, that is all we have time for today here on RaceSpot TV. We hope you enjoyed this opening round of the Porsche Sport Carrera Cup, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time at Zolder. Thanks for watching.
2, 3, let's go.